Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear friends, dear brothers and sisters. And once again on the podcast about the most important things, the Nuradam podcast. And today we have Islamic psychologist Torebek Bekbayev as our guest by popular demand of our viewers. Assalamu alaikum, alaikum assalam. Thank you for coming.
Thank you too.
Thanks for being here. In the comments, people have been asking for us to invite you on the podcast. We had originally intended to, but it seems that fate foretold us this very path, and here we are at this moment. Today we are here thanks to the will of Allah, and this is undoubtedly a unique moment. Without further words and preface, let us move on to the main thing, to the questions which I'm sure have been waiting for us for a long time and are ready to reveal their essence before us.
Yes.
I would like to share some details about my personal consultations with Torebek. Yes, it happened 2 or 3 times, and it is because of this that I would like to start our conversation with the issue of nafs. This topic has always piqued my interest, and I believe it is important for everyone to have an understanding of what nafs is and how to interact with it. Your stories and discussions about nafs are, frankly, of great interest to me, and I would appreciate more information on this topic. This kind of presentation and exactly this kind of text I haven't seen anywhere else, and it's exactly with this form, something unique. Frankly speaking, it is this structure, this approach, and these words that really attract attention. And so today I want to share this unique form and exactly this approach with our esteemed viewers. Yes, it is something special and inexpressible.
That the nafs is the ego state of the soul. It's a tool that shows what level we live on, what state our soul is in. And it is like a thermometer. It shows the temperature of the body, and nafs shows the temperature of the soul, and it has 7 degrees, 7 levels. It is like an instrument, an indicator, and it's also like a radio receiver which has 7 channels that we listen to. And we're usually tuned to channel 1. Until our soul develops. We're on channel 1. And channel 1, that's where the shaitan is broadcasting from. So he's authorized to broadcast from there. And he only comes to us from channel 1. And every day when we wake up in the morning, he sings a song to us. What song does he sing? Do you think?
What song does shaitan sing,
In the morning,
basically?
yes, in the morning. When we wake up, he sings us a song. Which one?
We don't get up for namaz.
Well, he says go back to sleep.
Well,
Even
yeah.
He doesn't sleep. He's always working.
Then
And channel 1 is his channel. That's where he broadcasts from. And when he tells us to do something, orders us to do something, he gives us reasons why I should do it.
there's a reason why I should do it.
And he makes reasons why I should sleep. Why? Why do you think?
Interestingly, my night sleep might have been affected by yesterday's performance of Taraweeh namaz, as nighttime spiritual practices can affect the quality of sleep. This may be the reason for my current condition.
Familiar with
You
the
made
song?
an exception today. Yes.
Yes, and that's how we can discern. When we begin to reflect, we recognize where the signal is coming from. He's also rushing us to do it. When he tells us to do something, he rushes us. So the rush comes from him too. And how do we get rid of that rush? We need to press pause and ask the question, for whom?
And he's rushing us so that we make a mistake. Yes, he's rushing us.
He's rushing us so that we don't have time to think. And he's giving us evidence so that we don't think either. Because if we start thinking, his song doesn't come through. And he is powerless over man, really. He can only control the man who is not pondering. And a man who ponders is a questioner who doesn't ask questions, he decides. And then a man just goes along with it.
So it's enough for him to be told what to do and he'll go along
Man
with
thinks that it's his thoughts, that it's what he thinks. In fact, he's listening to his song, which comes with arguments, with proofs, and also rushes him. Like when I get cut off on the road, he sings me the song again. What's he saying?
it. Well, interestingly enough, he says, doesn't that one respect you? You go get him, tell him who you are, show him.
Yes. I don't ponder, I don't question. For whose sake? If I press pause and ask the question, for whom? I'm a human being. If I don't ask the question, I will follow.
So, imagine this situation. You are cut off on the road and you turn on this inner pause and then say, I am for the sake of Allah.
I ask the question first. For whom? And then the answer comes to me. A question is an inquiry.
So the answer to the question, for whom, is for the sake of Allah.
Yes, who am I?
Who am I?
If I'm a slave, then for whom am I?
Uh-huh.
And then the answers come to me. He's also rushing me, so I don't have time to ask the question.
Right? Because let's say you are driving in a car and you are cut off. Instead of reacting to that moment with indignation, you inwardly ask yourself the question, who am I? And then, with confidence and calmness, answer, I am a slave of Allah. Yes?
I ask the question. Who am I?
Me?
The answer
It
comes.
Yes.
Yes. Then who am I for?
For whom am I? For the sake of Allah. Yes.
Yes.
So for the sake of Allah, I will not be angry and I can't.
I can't because He didn't order me to scold anyone.
Allah doesn't order you to scold someone. Yes, yes.
There is no such command. To mother someone, to be angry with someone.
Well, so on the contrary,
So-
yes, if you go that there, a strong man is the one who controls his anger. Yes? Yes.
Yes.
So we have to, in anger too.
And anger also has instructions on how to use it.
Uh-huh.
You got to get rid of it. It's to run away from it. It has to go to the right place
The address is,
in a polite manner, with respect.
what then is anger in man for?
Man is an instrument for worship. Anger is a tool for worship. The
And how does it
feeling,
help in worship?
I was made for worship only.
Uh-huh.
If he says only, then there is no other purpose. There is only one purpose, worship.
So it's clearly defined here. Yeah, it's,
Yeah. When he says only, he is excluding all other purposes. There is no other purpose.
And what is the purpose of Allah's anger?
If I am created for worship, then everything He has given me,
Everything that,
everything is for worship as a tool.
like a tool. Uh-huh, uh-huh. Okay, wait, it's too early for me to get it all in my head. It's,
I get it.
Alhamdulillah, right? Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, right? What? I created you for worship, so I'm only for worship. If I have anger, I don't know. Jealousy, greed, whatever, it's all got to come down to my worship. Yeah. So it has to come down
Yes,
to my
I
worship,
agree.
right? Because
Because all things are for service. Things don't just happen.
but anger, what about anger? Maybe
Maybe
anger.
anger in worship, it's a feeling. Feeling animates me. Why am I alive? Because I have feeling. Even the dead don't have feeling.
Anger?
I am alive because I have feeling. There is positive feeling, negative feeling, neutral feeling. It's like an electric current. Plus, minus, neutral. And these are the tools that I must worship. When I release my anger for someone, I serve him.
Here is an opinion that, for example, anger is, again, yes, Allah has endowed us in order that, for example, in a situation where you need to get angry so that you get angry.
In fact, it is possible to never get angry.
So if, for example, your, say, family
Why?
is attacked, yes.
You go, you need anger for you to defend? I can protect without anger. Just, there's an example from Hazrat Ali, as far as I know. This is his example. During a battle, he wanted to kill his opponent with his sword. He spits in his face, and he stops. Picks him up. He's not afraid he'll kill him. He picks it up. Oh, he picked him up, huh? Yeah. He's surprised. He says, "Why didn't you kill me? I spit on purpose so you'd get angry and kill me so I wouldn't suffer." And then Hazrat Ali says, "I was afraid I would get angry." He didn't say I was angry. I was afraid I would get angry.
He didn't need anger, did he?
He's in control of every second of the situation. He's not fighting for himself, because faith doesn't belong to him. He's fighting in the way of and for the Almighty.
Look, can I interject? Yeah, I'm going to interject because I'm really curious about this. Look, in that situation where he spit in his face, here he controlled his anger, that is, he didn't follow the provocation from shaitan, yes, from his nafs. It turns out that here he raised the enemy, and here what happened? It turns out he
stopped.
The test from Allah passed at this point, didn't it?
In fact, the test can be seen as an education. He passed the education.
He passed the test, and so he was not afraid. He raised it up, yes, because it's passed, yes. So it's also by Allah's will that this spitting happened, yes, in his face.
He wasn't afraid. He's only afraid of him. He was not afraid of death. He doesn't fight because he's afraid. Even we do most things because of fear of loss. The fear of loss goes when I privatize his things, when I privatize and afraid of losing it. We live our whole lives not to lose these things. And if I accept myself, who I am, and what belongs to me.
If you're a slave, you don't own anything.
If I have nothing, then I have nothing to lose.
There's nothing to be afraid of, is there?
Then there's nothing to be afraid of. Because fear, the feeling of fear is also for worship. And who should I be afraid of?
Is it also for worship? Only Him.
And for whom?
For Him.
Then there will be worship.
You know, you just told me about Hazrat Ali. I remember one Imam told me a dream. He said he was walking in a dream and he saw two men fighting each other with swords. He said he was walking in the other direction. There was some line. I do not know all the details, but here is the essence of what he wanted to convey. He says, when I saw them, I thought, damn, they're Muslims. They want to kill each other. So he went to stop them. And I'm the only one who took a step in that direction. That's when they stopped hitting each other with their swords, looked at me and walked away. And he said, I realized then that I had learned my lesson there. That is, I reacted as necessary for the sake of Allah to separate them, as Islam teaches us. Islam teaches us.
Yes.
It's similar to this moment when he, lifted up his opponent without fearing that he's going to kill him. It's just that he's already learned his lesson, passed the test, right? Maybe. I mean, there's probably a similarity to that, right?
Because in all of these cases, there's not just one answer, there's wisdom, there's many answers.
Infinite, maybe. I mean,
You can interpret it infinitely, and everyone will see something different.
MashaAllah. Everyone will see what they are meant to see and what they need to
Yes,
see. Right?
he
Kill?
gets his point.
Yes, to kill. This situation, get out of it.
Alhamdulillah.
Very interesting.
You'll see? Very interesting. The hadith is the same as the ayat. It's the same as the ayat. A spring like the moisture, endless.
What you need to get from Allah at a certain point in your life, you will get through this hadith, right? I mean, for example,
I can
right
ask
now.
one question 100 times, and every answer will be different. You can ask one question 100 times, 1,000 times, and each time you'll get a new answer.
It's like, when I read the ayat, Zakaria said to his son, before you eat, say Bismillah. And there was this moment, take the piece that's in front of you, and it seems like it's about food, and it's like there's rules of behavior at the table, like don't take someone else's piece. So at that point, I took it personally. I thought, do what Allah has predestined you to do in this life. If you can make a movie, stay out of somewhere else because it's someone else's piece. Yes, let it be bigger, let it look tastier. But it's not for you. It might not go down your throat. You might choke on it. On it. This is the moment.
Yes.
I mean, I had to learn this from this ayat. I mean, through this, Allah was telling me, calm down, here study, here's what I'm telling you here.
And without knowing what he was saying, you can't speak for him. That's how I perceive it. That's how I perceived it at the time.
Well,
and what he was saying, I can't say.
If that's how I perceived it, I guess that's what he was telling me, right? You have to, not necessarily.
Not like what you're saying. If I say that's what he said in his own words, that's not even what he actually said. That's how I took it, right?
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying it's how I perceive it, the way I see it.
Well, to put it simply, yes, that, at that moment, if my heart reacted to it, and it didn't react then, it reacted now. I heard it there, it was generated for me, so that I could decipher it for myself in this conversation, I guess, yes.
Yes, I can spend my life deciphering it. I can spend my life getting answers.
That's what Allah gave us the heart for and gave us, so that through the heart through the heart to determine that's what we can get out of it that is useful for us here from the heart.
Yes, the heart is the antenna that receives signals from it. Allah's controlling us through the heart, gives us feelings, and we feel with our heart.
Well, they say recently, I read that scientists have proven that it turns out that thought processes happen in the heart.
There's a brain in there.
That information goes from here to the brain, not the other way around, as people used to think. And I read an article like that. Is that one version?
And I read it a little bit. It's one version, but you can't limit it because it's one version. It's one, because there's a brain here and there's a brain there. And there can be thought processes everywhere.
We can't unequivocally answer that.
Yes. We don't have to decide, we can assume. And for example, what we're saying is just my version, that's all. And everybody takes whatever they want.
That's interesting, yes. You were talked about 7 channels. The first one is the one the shaitan's on, right? Channel 1.
Is like a swamp. A spiritual swamp. The mud, spiritual too. It's when we get angry, irritated, hate, despise, blame, condemn. It's all mud and we live in that filth. This is the level of our soul, the first level. Because we follow the dictates, we listen to his songs and we don't realize that we're in the swamp. So we live there and we don't see anything in the spiritual swamp. How we can get out of it is to start asking questions. Questions are the rope of the Almighty that saves us. He gave us this formula on it. If we stick to it, we don't stop. Then we get out of there. I start asking questions like, who am I? I lift my head up, lift up a little bit. I ask a second question like, where am I from? I start to see the sky. I come out of the swamp, so my head comes out. I ask the third question, I look around, I see a clearing. I ask the fourth question. I start to distinguish odors. That the swamp, it turns out, stinks. I ask question 5, I start to distinguish that the meadow is clean and the swamp is dirty. And when I ask questions and don't stop asking questions, I get out of there. Asking questions is a process. Once the process stops, there will be stagnation. Stagnation is a swamp. It starts to stink. And the process is like a river. It cleanses. When water flows, it is purified. When it stagnates, when it stands still, it starts to deteriorate.
So yes, Islam is the path. That is, when we take this path, we are already on the path.
Yes, worship is also spoiling. What am I created for worship? It's a process. There's no result.
There's a process.
In process, there will be a result when the process ends.
Judgment Day?
Yes. When the process ends, any process, there will be a result. As long as the process is going on, there is no result. And we are created for the process, not for the result.
It turns out that people who are outside of Islam today, who do not worship properly, it's like they're in this swamp.
There's no one else but me. There's no one but me. There is only me. The whole world is my reflection.
There's a peaceful reflection. It's that moment when someone annoys me with something.
Yeah, he's showing me what feelings I have.
What feelings I have. So he's showing me that I'm annoyed. Yes.
Yeah, that I'm annoyed. Why am I annoyed? Because I have a condition on how to drive. I conditioned him to follow all the rules. Drive by the rules. I decide, I take over. To myself I rule.
And if he breaks the rules that Islam has outlined?
Yeah. Whose rules are they?
Allah's.
So who should be angry?
Is he the only one? Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
I can only worry about him.
But if, for example, you're walking down the street, you see someone getting beaten up, and you're supposed to intervene, help. Yeah, like we're taught in Islam, right? I see.
The instructions are to stop it with my hands or with words or heart. Yes.
Or my heart.
Hands is all I have in my hands.
Yes.
That I can do. And don't hurt anyone. So it can't hurt. I mean, do no harm. I can do no harm. Legally, when I do things legally, I can call to the proper authorities so they can look into it.
If right at that moment, that is, you are already physically there, yes, you will not have time, yes, to call there, and so on. This is where it happens.
Yes, I have to analyze the situation. If I can handle it, I can intervene. If I can't handle it, I can call someone.
You know, I'll tell you something about me. I was just sitting here before you guys came here thinking about, you know, personally my relationship with my nafs. Yeah, now it turns out it's on a completely different level than I thought, than I wanted to think. Yeah. And I realized that even in my posts that I write there on Instagram and my podcast, yes, there, when I discuss something, I realize that Everywhere the ears of the nafs stick out. Yes. On the one hand, I was even somehow relieved by this realization. Well, at least I'm there to admit to myself, yes, that it turns out the process doesn't work that way.
Nafs ears sticking out, what's that?
Well, that I go along with my nafs, yes. Before, I did not realize that it was my nafs. I thought, no, I'm like this. I'm right anyway, yes. And if someone there writes some comment pointing out some such things to me, I didn't want to hear it there, yes. I could have deleted that comment there, yes, say he is fool and so on. Well, now I realize that, yes, I'm just a human being, and nobody told me that once I said the Shahada and started doing namaz that I became like a saint. Yes, a saint or there, at least I curbed my nafs and so on. It turns out that the situation is far from that, yes, so... Well, a man is created to make mistakes, yes, I understand that. Ouch.
In the swamp,
now
yes.
I see, yes.
In the swamp, I'm a saint. I'm a king.
Yes.
I know everything, how everybody should live. I tell everyone, and I'm the only one who's right, in the swamp. Though I do namaz, I'm a saint there, and I'm the only one who goes to heaven. The others all go to hell. I decide where I go, who goes where.
Yes, it's very similar, yes.
I mean, yeah, in the swamp it's like that, because only in the swamp I am right. I'm the only one who's right. I'm the king there. Everybody is guilty. I know everything. And only me is a saint. And the
They're
rest...
not all sinners. So to get out of there, you have to start asking questions.
I start asking questions and I get out.
Questions about who I am, what I'm for.
Any questions? As long as I ask, start asking questions, my thinking process starts. When I think, I'm a human being, pondering, thinking. When there are no questions, I don't think, and I live like what? Like an animal.
And how can you distinguish, for example, the teaching of shaitan from what Allah tells you and from your own thoughts? Or is there something else present there besides this, only through...
Questions. I have a thought, right? If I ask the question, for whom, it will immediately determine where it comes from.
That.
Channel 1. It broadcasts only bad things, only bad things.
Someone benefits from it.
Yes, it orders only bad things. Channel 1. And when I ask a question, it becomes clear where it comes from.
And the constant voice in my head. I think everybody's probably got one of those, I hope
Yes.
so. Well, this dialogue, yes, there is this voice that he constantly says nasty things. Yes, it's right
Okay.
there. Laughing and so on. What's that? That's the shaitan.
Yes, it's channel 1.
I can
First
communicate
level
with
of
him,
nafs.
channel 1.
I can communicate with him. It could be... It can be me. I mean, I have 2 hemispheres. They can communicate.
Oh, that's me too. Yes, it's me.
Yes, I myself can split apart.
That's what I think I'm going through, yeah, because... here we go. What did Allah give it to us for? What for?
To analyze, to understand. In fact, for worship, yes. And what is worship? It's action plus intention.
Action plus intention.
When I combine the two, there will be worship. Just action. I live like an animal without intention. For there to be intention, I have to ask the question,
Now,
whom?
for example, to drink a glass of water, such an action.
It is an action. I drink it for no reason, unconsciously. Like what? Like an animal.
Like animals?
Because we have the same way of life as animals. They live the same way, eat the same way, reproduce the same way. They build houses the same way, they defend their territories the same way, they work the same way, raise children the same way, They smell the same way, play the same way. They rejoice, they get the same. They get sick, they heal. They have everything the same. The way of life is the same.
Well,
It's animal instinct. We live by instinct. What's the mind for? Turns out you don't need a mind to live. What's it for then, the mind? You don't need it to live. Animal instinct is enough, and they live happily.
yeah, they don't worry at all, do they? They don't suffer.
They don't suffer. Animals don't suffer. They live happily. What for? What is the mind for then? If we don't use it, we live the same way. What is the mind for? To know. And to know something, you have to think. And to think, you have to ask questions. And without knowing, I can't worship. I don't know who to worship because I don't know him. I was created for worship only.
There is a hadith that talks about the possibility of knowing the Almighty through self-knowledge, and I won't quote it. But the point is that it emphasizes how understanding oneself can lead to intimate knowledge of God.
Because I was created in his name.
That is,
His names are centered in my creation. His names. I am created by his names. That is, when I know myself, I know him. I have a sense of mercy. I don't know what it really is. Do you? But if I start thinking that you gave it to me, then it's his feeling.
when we show mercy to others, we thereby open ourselves to the possibility of knowing God more intimately and sharing this divine goodness with others.
To know what mercy is.
But he has it infinitely, unlike us.
Yes, unlike us. And what's given us? It's just a taste to taste. A taste of what mercy is. It's the same with the will. He gave us the will so that we would know it, not to privatize it. When I start privatizing, I start deciding how to live my life. Then I'm no longer a slave, I become a master.
And here, for example, the name, the giver of inheritance, right? Yes.
Yes,
How can we recognize this name in ourselves?
in relation to the children,
In
I feed
relation
the children,
to,
even clothe them, shop for them. I give him money. I give him something. I understand who gives me my inheritance. The child teaches me, the child introduces me to the Almighty. The child came to teach me.
I had a daughter last year by the will of Allah, by His grace. Yes, I'm having this very interesting experience. I've recently realized that she's been crying. Sometimes crying and you think, what more do you want? And then she cries. She doesn't like something. She starts crying, right? And it seemed to me how right I was thinking. I felt like Allah was showing me, right? That's my nafs, isn't it? When I want it, that's it, isn't it? I guess that's it. Yeah.
That's one option. In fact, if she's crying, it means one of the parents is crying too. That I don't see crying. Maybe the wife does. Maybe she's crying, but I can't see it.
Either I'm crying myself.
Or I myself cry, but I don't see it either. The child reflects me. He's showing me
That works too, right?
him,
The relationship between two people. He's made of two people.
dad and mom, half dad, half mom. If he cries, he's showing his parents' relationship. Maybe it's a deplorable relationship,
Uh-huh.
so they can't hear each other. Somebody wants to cry. And he shows it. So he can't say it in words, he shows it in action. And that way I'll be clearer on the sore spot when they hit. A child is a sore spot. I'm starting to understand better. Like when my wife says, "You can't hear me," I don't get it.
You can't even hear that. Yeah, yeah.
I can't even hear that.
Yeah.
Then it goes on.
That's interesting. Yeah. What if like a baby's always begging to be held, right? There you go. If you don't pick it up, it cries, it smiles in your arms. Well, that's like, what could it be?
That I'm not picking it up. I'm going to have to look at the relationship with your wife. What am I not picking up? Maybe I'm not taking care of the kids. Maybe. Not to deal with the kids.
Not deal with the kids.
When I deal, they get excited. They miss that. A father's attention, maybe. One possibility. I mean, there's a lot of options, maybe, and they could all be useful in this situation.
And how do you learn to read? Comprehend, yeah. Read, yeah.
You just have to start. And in the practice will increase understanding.
Begin to become... Reflect, you mean, right? Compare.
Keep going. Raise research questions. Why is this phenomenon occurring? There is only one presence within consciousness. Yours. It reflects you completely exclusively in your depths.
That's an interesting point you always make, isn't it? I mean, you said it in counseling that there is no one else but me, right? So, it turns out that there is me, there is this world that Allah created for me. Yes.
Yes.
All the people around me, they are also created for me.
They're helping me.
To get me into paradise.
Yes.
For the ultimate goal.
They all serve me. They came to rescue me. They are the universe. The universe is a book I'm not reading. When I should be reading it, He gave me this book to read. But I'm not reading it. I don't ask questions.
It's interesting. There's actually a lot to think about because, well, for example, before I didn't really, I haven't really thought about it, have I? Well, I think a lot of people probably still don't reflect like that either. That's perception before. A baby crying, you think, well, every baby cries. That's the same way, right? Perception?
Yes.
Yes, a human being.
It seems like a simple thing to me. But it's actually more than that. Nothing is simple. Every single thing has a purpose. Everything, if you take it, it has a purpose.
I created everything by predestination, yes.
Yes. The atom, it's there for a reason. It has its own laws that it lives in. It's there for a reason. You can't even see it. I mean, there's not a thing that's not needed or just lying around. They all serve.
It turns out that people have a lot of, misconceptions. For example, I've heard that, that the baby cries. Well, because it's how he develops his lungs, yes.
Yes, but I'm talking about people. There's no one. I'm deluded.
So it's my choice to go into that delusion, right, or not?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, the baby is crying. It's Allah trying to tell you something. Not just because He wants to develop his lungs there.
Yeah, I have to think why He's crying, what He's showing me. He's reflecting me. He's come to save me, really. What I don't understand, I can't understand.
I also heard that they say that if your wife disobeys you, then you disobey Allah in some way. That's it, isn't it?
Yes. And if, that's one option. Well, if my wife doesn't listen to me, she shows that I'm a king, not a slave, that I've put conditions on her. And I'm suffering because of it, because of my conditions. She shows me my suffering. Why am I suffering? Because I conditioned her to listen to me. And my conditions are broken, I suffer. She saves me. That I shouldn't set conditions.
And that a wife should be submissive to her husband.
That's not my problem. That's her problem.
Well, Yes, I mean, that's what's important here. What are you and who are you?
Yeah, I'm not here to educate anyone, to make a difference, to solve someone. All situations have come to solve me, to bring me up. They all show only me. My perception, I see for a reason.
Here I'm going from my experience. Yeah, it turns out here I used to have, when I was worried about the other person, for his prayers, for example, for his worship and so on, it was like I was taking it out on myself and I was having a hard time with it.
I'm privatizing.
I was worried. I thought I was doing something wrong. I'm not doing enough to make this person there. Yeah, great. And how?
I blame myself.
Alhamdulillah, that's the load. Well, Allah helped me somewhere to shed it. I said, it's yours. Yes, I care about what I do, whether I do namaz on time or not. Whether I am getting knowledge or not, whether I am striving, yes, and I feel much better. This is probably the moment when I stopped privatizing myself.
If I change actions, that's wrong. Actions don't change. I can also help. I need to change intentions, not actions. Who am I helping for? If it's for me, I'll suffer. If for the sake of the Almighty.
You know, I've often asked the question, and I've asked different people the question, well, I somehow can't quite get it yet. Understand, behold, the intention for the sake of Allah, like this and this and this can be understood. Yes, well, behold, Allah does not need anything. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, I do.
If I do because He needs, He will not be Allah.
Well,
the intention He gave me was to save me. For example, when two children fight over a toy, I said, give it to him for me. I give him an intention. I save him with that intention. If he gives for me, he does not suffer. He is relieved when he gives for me. And when it's for his own sake, he won't give up the toy. But when I say give it to him for me, I'll buy you another one. I'll give you another one. I save him. In the same way, God saves me when He gives me an intention for whom to do it. For example, I go to work, earn money, for the sake of my children, for the sake of my wife. Then I suffer. It's hard for me. Then I come to do a favor, that I work for their sake I suffer. And then God saves me and tells me, if these are not my creatures, if this is not my work, if you are not mine, do it for my sake and do not suffer. He gives me a way out, an intention, for whose sake to do it. If my efforts are directed towards the Supreme, it is no longer just formal service, but deep devotion. If I'm doing it for Him, I don't come home with a favor, a bare favor. I can't shove it to them that I'm working for them. I'm releasing them from suffering. I'm putting them out of their misery. I'm not working for them. When I work for Him, He says, I'll give you.
So, in understanding what it means to say for His sake, we can interpret and expand the understanding of this expression as a moment when God is essentially saying to us, I am asking you to do this for my sake.
Yes, don't worry, it's all mine, it's not yours, you're a slave. You have nothing, it all belongs to me. Do it for me and don't suffer. He saves me. He gives me the intention of this salvation, for whom to do. For example, a wife cleans the house. For whom? For the sake of guests, or for the sake of her husband, or for the sake of her mother-in-law, or for the sake of cleanliness, for the sake of some result. She expects this result and sets the condition that the house must always be clean. Her
Yes.
conditions will always be violated, and she will always suffer. When she sees the dirt again,
Uh-huh.
she will suffer. And that's when the Almighty saves her. He says, "Do it for me. Isn't this my home? Aren't you mine?
Isn't it all mine? Well,
Do it for me." The result doesn't matter. Not the result. If she does it for him, it's a process. For God's sake. And it doesn't matter who's fighting.
then this won't be a bother either. Yes.
Whether it stays clean or not, she will not suffer. He saves her by giving her intention.
Mashallah. Now that's an issue I know who should definitely be shown to. Ha 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 ha.
Same thing. Anything I do,
Look, this is a very important point, yes. I've been wanting to make a movie for some time now, well, for quite a long time, yes. I want to make a movie in such a way that it is connected with Islam. Well, that the call is present because, well, Islam is taught to do this. It is necessary to call others. Allah has given you, put you on this path, now help others, yes. It turns out I could not write a screenplay. Yeah, you get an idea that's good, but at some point you just give up. It turns out the whole problem was that I had the wrong intention. Yeah, maybe. Well, maybe. I'm just thinking about it now. Maybe I didn't want to do it for the sake of Allah, but for the sake of people.
result.
Allegedly, I can, yes, save God, yes, wanted to save, help people, come.
Expectation?
Expectation, yes. And if it's for the sake of Allah, it turns out you just do it, yeah.
Not for the result. It doesn't matter where I get to, how much I do, how much I get done. It doesn't matter. It's the journey. That's all it is. I'm made for the process, not for the result.
MashaAllah.
And it is this intention that saves me from suffering.
So for the sake of Allah is like, do as He instructs you. Yes, by instruction. Here,
As instructed.
He teaches you there. To eat with your right hand. Yeah. Just
Yes.
eat with your right hand. That's for the sake of Allah, yes. So in this choice, when you don't use your left hand when eating.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Whose decision am I honoring? Whose will am I doing? And for whom? Whose instructions are these?
So our business is just to follow this guidance that has been sent down to us. And then everything will be easy. Our business.
It's just a matter of accepting. If I accept, I enjoy. If I don't, I suffer.
Uh-huh.
Acceptance is pleasure. Not accepting is suffering. Any situation is the same. Any person I accept, I enjoy. If I don't accept, I suffer.
That's the suffering you're talking about, yeah. To be honest, I have experienced a lot of suffering. Not understanding these things. Yeah, I was talking to Tabigat on the previous podcast. Tabigat Kautai, yeah, about the fact that here in the mosque I used to get really stressed out there when someone was praying out loud, when someone was twitching their leg, yeah, in namaz, and I was getting all this stuff. I thought, don't you know that you can't jiggle your foot during namaz? Yeah. You are standing in front of Allah. Yes. Or don't you know that you can't pray loudly there because you disturb others? It turns out that I was hindered by my nafs, which wanted everyone.
No one disturbs me. I don't have anyone. It's a tool.
So I was in my own way.
I set conditions for myself. I set conditions that nobody should do that, and they have to live the way I want them to live.
And supposedly everyone can live the way they want to live. It's kind of complicated.
Anything that's complicated is a lie. All that's simple is growth. All that's simple is genius. All that's genius is simple.
Yes.
It's the calculations that torture me.
Now, look, this broadcasting speaker of first level, it's amplified, it's broadcasting, it's louder, I don't know, more powerful. The sound is coming from there. There's a hadith, yeah, you shouldn't praise a person to his face, otherwise you break his backbone. Yes.
Yes.
It turns out the nafs, it swells up from that when a person has had enough. It turns out his inner idea of himself, it grows bigger than he is in reality. Yes?
If he's not ready, I can do some damage. If he's a saint, he doesn't care.
Uh-huh.
He sends there. He says all the praise belongs to him.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Now, we're not talking about a saint, we're talking about an ordinary, man. So, here we go. If a person has been told for years, all time saying how good you are, how smart you are, how talented you are, yes, astaghfirullah, what you are, he grows all this here, and after that he thinks that everybody should follow his rules now, right? He knows.
Yes, everyone should praise him. He decides how should live others. He sets the terms. His conditions are broken. He suffers.
Uh-huh. So in order not to suffer, he has to
remove the conditions. That's me. Get back to himself.
Uh-huh.
If he finds himself, the universe is in place. If I've forgotten myself, lost myself, the universe is a mess. Everything is wrong. Everybody's living wrong. It's everybody's fault.
Uh-huh.
Everybody is guilty. But I'm the only one who suffers.
But jealousy, yeah. In this context, how can envy be analyzed? It turns out that a person with such an inflated nafs, yes, he lives his life and then it turns out that someone else has something better. It turns out that he has it, right? That is, it doesn't fit into the framework of his perception of the world, right? So in his world, he's the coolest. Right?
There are two kinds of envy, white and black. White envy is when he can have it and I can have it. Black envy, when I'm the only one who can have it, and he won't.
So white envy, is that acceptable?
It's acceptable. Let him have it and let me have it. You can compete in the good stuff.
Uh-huh.
Envy helps. For whom am I jealous of? There will be worship.
Uh-huh. I mean, if you see a man who has already achieved some success in worship, right?
I can imitate him.
I mean, it's
to do like him, to evolve like him, so he helps me, shows me the way.
We should envy the Prophet Muhammad the most, right? Yes. So we should strive to be like that.
To be like him, yes?
Like
I
him,
mean,
huh? I mean, to
emulate him,
yeah,
right?
Like
he was sent for us too. For us to follow him.
A model for everyone. Strive for that, then you'll succeed, right? Inshallah? Yes, super. Super. This is a very interesting conversation we're having. I'm really enjoying it now. I've always wondered about this one too. Look, there's the speaker, yes, our nafs, yes, there's the soul, yes, there's the mind. And here we are when here we are. How does that work, right? I mean, what else is there of the components? Well, there's the body, obviously, yeah, it's physical, right?
The heart, the feelings. They're all tools that are given to me. I am the soul.
I am the soul?
Yes.
Nafs is my state.
Yes. Nafs is the ego state of the soul. What is the state of being? That is the level of my development.
I mean,
it shows my level of development.
I mean, if you're annoyed with everyone around you and so on, it means you've got something, you're still...
I'm in the swamp.
At that level, huh?
If I have one person to blame, I'm in the swamp. If I have a grudge against someone, I'm in the swamp. I've got that mud.
And if you have offenses, they're not even on people, but they're on...
I'm in the swamp. Resentment is a swamp. That's why you can't hold grudges for more than 3 days.
And the mind is a tool.
Yes, the mind is also a tool that helps me analyze, read the situation, analyze. And it gives me a report.
And the decision is made by the soul.
The decision is actually made by him.
He makes the decision.
And gives us his decision through feeling.
Through feeling. So the decision gets into the feeling through the heart.
Yes.
Feeling, yes. Then the mind.
It accepts it. And it thinks it's the one who decides.
I'm the only one.
His decision, he appropriates it.
Once I noticed that, somehow I managed to make a plea, and I felt that I had done it at the right time, and it was what I needed at that moment. And that's when I thought Allah had given me that supplication. Yes? That's
Yes.
the way it is, isn't it?
He's leading us. Well, and we're asking him to lead us, not for me to decide.
Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim.
Yeah, we ask him to guide us. And he sends us feelings and tells us where to go. He's guiding us. He's leading us by feelings.
That is, he is so infinitely merciful to us that he inspires us with a supplication, and he himself accepts that supplication. Yes, that's it.
He teaches us. He is merciful.
Well,
he doesn't want us to suffer. He only gives us good. And it always saves us. Every second of every day, he's watching us, controlling us, directing us.
I'm going to need some time, to let that sink in, because at least it's not so easy for me to take it all in at once. The path of the soul, right? Tell me how it all started, and these are all the stages. Yes, how will it happen?
The soul's journey begins at his creation, when he created us.
He created us all
souls.
at the same time.
It has a beginning, no end, the soul. The journey is endless, but there's only a beginning when he created us. There is no end. And when people ask what the soul is, he says, tell them it's one of the Almighty's business. So it's of his works. What the soul is, it is his business. It's also his order. The soul comes from the world of governance. Soul rules. Soul. And everything obeys him. And as he says, he created us as a caliph. A caliph is a viceroy. It is the representative of the Almighty on earth. It's like the president appointing the mayor. He sends it out, everyone reports to the mayor. Everybody listens to him. Everybody serves him. Because he represents the president. That's why everyone obeys him. Not because he's the mayor, but because he's the president's representative. Yes? Man is exactly the same way. He's the representative of the Almighty. Everyone obeys him. Who does he represent? Him. Whom he should. How shall I put it?
he should introduce, no, not introduce, but introduce.
Who should he introduce?
Yes.
Who he should introduce. But in order for someone to introduce him, he must first be acquainted with him. And in order to know himself, he must know him. And then he must first know himself. And this growth, when he knows himself, he knows himself, he knows himself. He gets to the point where he gets to know him, to the next level.
And he has subjugated, I mean, who has he subjugated?
Who?
Well, Allah sent man to be a viceroy, didn't he?
Yes.
And to the viceroy he subordinated this world, right?
Yes, everything that he created for man. And
Yes.
everyone obeys him, everyone respects him, everyone serves him.
Everyone, you mean other people too?
Yes. Everything that surrounds him, the whole universe.
Everything is subordinate?
Serves him.
Serves them?
Yeah, they're doing his bidding, really.
I mean, it's such a complex system, isn't it?
Yeah, everyone has their own universe. And everybody's fulfilling somebody else's universe. Serves someone.
Serves. About this here, the Ayat Rabbul Alamin, yes? The Lord of all worlds, that is, each person is a separate world, yes?
Every human being is a representative of this universe. God's representative. Everything in the universe is in this man.
Interesting, yeah. Also, you know, you and I had a conversation once, and you told me an interesting thing about human choice. I mean, before I met you, I treated it as a choice. I have a choice, yes, to buy a cell phone, or to buy a Samsung, or to, I don't know, to choose whether to sit or stand. To sit or to stand or to drink a Coke or a Fanta. You explained then that the choice is actually already predetermined. It depends on the state of the soul. Yeah, at this point, from his purity, right? I've really started to feel it in my life. I mean, there are times when you can't make another decision. Yes, yes. You, for example, are already disgusted to do what you used to do, right? Well, Allah purifies you there. Yes, there, the same way, right?
Yes, I follow the attitude. An attitude is a program. When I have a program running, there's no choice. There's a program running. Well,
So the
it's
man has no
attitudes.
choice?
Not really, because who am I? Well,
It's like, I don't know, it's common, yeah, that like Allah gave man a choice. But I don't remember, I haven't met such ayat where Allah says, I gave you a choice there, yes, or I can be wrong, or actually no.
there is this ayat, you will not wish until he wishes.
Yeah, I read it recently.
And it says, you shall not wish. If you
Well,
take that word, it says, you will not wish.
Here I am, by the way, when I read this ayat, I too thought that even our choices are predetermined by Him.
Yes. I can show you visually whether you have a choice or not. You can take two things. Choose
Well, here's the cell phone.
who picked the phone.
Me,
Why did I pick the phone?
well, because it's this, well, for me, more useful a cell phone than a watch. Yeah?
Because it's
yeah,
healthier.
Yeah.
Is it? I have an installation why I should choose it. Who set it up? That I should choose what is useful?
Allah.
I'm following this setup. I can't go against that setup. I'm following it. Which means I'm not a freelancer. I have a program to follow the useful.
Uh-huh.
Who chooses?
He does
And me?
yes. Uh-huh.
Just following?
I'm just following.
I think it's my choice. Because I don't question who I am.
Well, look, in practice, there's a hadith, for example, where it says that there's, a hadith, right? Or an ayat. Hadith. It says, greeting acquaintances and strangers. Yes, I've started to teach myself that now, to say hello first. Even to strangers, assalamu alaikum, you say, right? I'm trying to follow the instructions, right?
Yes.
It turns out that my choice is predetermined by this instruction. The instructions were written, sent down by Allah, right? So my choice is already here. Yes, here it was. And that is, if I did not come to Islam by myself, but Allah brought me to Islam, and now I follow all the canons of Islam, then here it is. Allah made this choice for me, and He guides me. And those who will not believe until the day of judgment,
Choices.
they choose.
And why do they choose?
Why do they choose?
Because they choose from the choice of the will, from the will. I've been given a will.
Uh-huh.
I mean, not the will, but permission to use the will. The will belongs to him.
Uh-huh.
I've been given permission for her to use the will. Limited authorization. It's like there's a car on the farm. There's a driver. The driver is given a trip sheet to a limited time and place. He's allowed to use the car, and only as instructed. And that permit allows him to use the car, but only as instructed. If a person privatizes the car, he says it's mine and this permit is mine too. When he privatizes it, he's not driving by the book. Not on time, but wherever he wants to go. And then he's in violation, and there's a penalty for the violation. And the will is not given to us to privatize it, but to know him to whom it belongs, to act according to instruction. We take the will from that will. The will is given to us to know it, to know him to whom it belongs. And when we have that will, we privatize it. I think I'm a free man. I decide. Then I will be asked, who decides is responsible? He takes responsibility.
But when...
If I don't privatize the will, when I understand where it comes from, who it belongs to, and what his instructions are, and what I'm supposed to do with it, he has limited spaces where to use it and for whom the will. Then I'm not an appropriator, I'm a slave. I don't have a will, I follow instructions, installations. You don't have to try to understand it right away.
Yes, and so far, frankly speaking, it's a little bit difficult for me to understand it all. Look, if a person started... I don't know how correct it is to use such a phrase, wording, to abandon namaz. Well, he stops performing namaz. Here it turns out, he was following the instructions. At some point he decided not to use this manual, and he's going the other way. Yes? At this point, he's making a choice not to obey.
Yes.
He has here exercised the will that Allah has allowed him to exercise. But Allah permitted him to know Allah, permitted him to use it, and he uses it to disobey him. Yes?
He misappropriates it. I decide. He's misappropriating the will. And the property of the will is independence. The will is independence. It doesn't depend on anything. And the person gets a limited dose of independence. If he misappropriates it, then he will be responsible. If he uses by instruction to know what the will is, to whom it belongs, the absolute will is a drop from the ocean to know it. It is a taste of the will, what the will is.
So it is also an illusion of a person that he has this will?
It's an illusion. It doesn't exist.
Actually, he's not, it's like this. He's on a chain. They just made the chain a little bit longer. And he thinks he can run anywhere, but he has a limit. Yes?
If I'm a slave, does a slave have a will? No. He is not a free man. And it's better for him to be a slave. He doesn't suffer.
So an unbelieving person is, it turns out, one who is deceived by the fact that he has this will.
Yes.
Boundless, what he...
When he appropriates that will, begins to decide, he takes responsibility. And then he has to take responsibility. And when he follows instructions, he's not responsible for anything.
Because he was following instructions.
Yeah, because he didn't decide. He was just making his decision. Deciding and making a decision are two different things. He takes it from him, he decides for himself.
That is, within the framework of this will allowed to him, yes, he makes a decision inside, yes?
Yes.
An unbelieving man, and for that he will be held accountable.
He decides for himself. He decides. He uses that will. Who doesn't have a will, he makes his decision. His will, his signals he reads. What does he do? He goes with his intuition.
It's, it's similar, to what? That reminds me. We used to shoot some projects. And I give an assignment to a person, knowing in advance that this person, you'd better explain everything to him. He might get something wrong. I tell him, here, do this, 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 and bring this to me. The deadline comes when this was supposed to be accomplished. He didn't bring it to me. I say, why? He says, well, I've decided. I'd rather do it like this, like this, like this, and it didn't work. I said, why do you have to think? I've already thought for you. And there, everything was already arranged so that the result would come out, right? I mean, inside when he started to, get smart, right? Without sufficient experience, knowledge, and so on, he violated everything there and nothing happened. It's like that, isn't it?
Yes. When he starts to decide, he will be responsible. If he didn't decide, just followed the instructions, he wouldn't answer. He'd just get an award.
Yeah, I mean, if he said, look, you said to call this guy, and I call him, he's disconnected, then I can't ask him. He did what I told him to do, and it's off. It's not up to him. I'm going to say, okay, it's not your fault, right? But if he didn't call him, and...
Did he decide on his own that he wasn't going to answer?
Yeah. He said, I figured he'd pick up the phone for me, right? And I told him, you're going to get a call, you're going to pick it up, right? Well, if it's on that level, oh, alhamdulillah. That's more or less clear. In general, even now I remembered this example. I began to catch myself in such feelings that Allah, by His grace, has scattered a lot of hints to us in life in some experience, right?
Every second His grace.
There's a reason why I'm thinking of this one now, isn't there? I guess what you're saying would be easier for me on my own level.
I didn't remember that. He gives the thoughts too. He does. He leads us. He is the giver. The giver.
You know, about the clues, right? I've also noticed in the movies there are all kinds of clues, like the movie The Matrix, right? I've seen things there that even sometimes help me in namaz, right? Or, you know, I was thinking the other day, the movie Dog Heart a la Konikov, right? Where the deceased starred. I think Dog Heart is, you know, it's like a movie about the nafs, right? When they put an animal's heart in there, and that's what he turned into, right? Give it to me. You know, all those needs, right?
Because we live with animal instincts.
Well, that's where the dog is, that's where the heart is, isn't it? And so when a man turned into a dog, or a dog into a man,
The first level of nafs is the animal. The second level is a thinking person. And the transition from the first to the second is transformation, metamorphosis, converting. It's a big leap. There's a heaven and earth difference between the two.
that is why Allah has forbidden alcohol, because alcohol disables the mind, and only the nafs is there.
Anything that intoxicates.
Yeah.
Not just alcohol, but anything that intoxicates.
Because the mind is turned off, and there is only the nafs, and you have no control over anything. Cool. And I'm really glad that we're discussing such interesting issues today. The next question I'd like to ask is, here's the point of condemnation. In Islam, it is forbidden to condemn anyone. Where is the line between condemnation and censure? But we must condemn the reviled.
The reviled do not belong to me. Condemnation doesn't belong to me either.
No, only belongs to Allah.
Yeah, He's showing me the reprehensible. It's a reprehensible thing. Condemnation is an action. When I condemn, I take over his function. I decide who to condemn. And I see things in him that are reprehensible, that I should condemn. Things I don't have to create them myself, make these things myself. These are the things I shouldn't do myself. And if someone does, I cannot condemn him. I can worry for him, help him, get rid of him. But I can't condemn him. It's not in my power to condemn.
Allah forbids us from judging anyone, and He says that if you condemn someone, you don't die unless you do the same thing yourself.
Criticize.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep topic. It's so straightforward, as far as I know. There's just a lot of instances where a person might judge someone. For example, we don't know. A Muslim is walking down the street. There's a girl in a mini skirt. This is what he's supposed to do?
What does the Quran say? To dull the eye.
That's all. It's none of his business.
Yeah, it doesn't say to criticize, condemn. It says to dull the eye. It's his test. It's his education. He's being raised by the Almighty, showing him who? Also the Almighty. It shows you what to run from and who to run to.
How can we see the good in childhood traumas? It's a hot topic for a lot of people right now. Everyone's preoccupied with childhood trauma. that my parents didn't love me. My parents scolded me.
Seeing the good in trauma.
Yes.
Like being scolded by my parents as a child. I feel like I'm being traumatized. But when I'm a child, I don't know if it's a trauma or not. When I become an adult, I start to realize where it gets in my way. I become withdrawn. I'm becoming undiscovered. I'm afraid of something. I realize it was when you were a kid. It was, wasn't it? And it's traumatic for me, I think. Actually, they taught me how not to scold children. And when I got married, I realized who sacrificed for me, for my kids. They saved me and my kids.
Did they show you how not to do it?
Yes. Through the pain I felt, they taught me.
I mean, if I hadn't experienced that pain, I wouldn't have realized how much it hurt.
I'd inflict the same pain. I can see that it's not a trauma for me. I'm starting to realize I'm asking questions, that this is an experience that I'm having. I can see it as an experience. They're going to be heroes. They didn't know how to teach me. They used what they know. Everything they could. They made their own. It was all for me. Allah also sent them. And I learned how not to do things. They saved me from being a bad father. They saved my kids so they wouldn't suffer. I can see the good in that.
And if they'd raised them without that, if they'd raised them the right way, I might as well raise right.
Yeah, but they didn't know. They did the best they could.
So I can't blame them for that?
Yeah, because maybe I didn't do the wrong thing back then. They grew up in their environment too. They saw it too. Maybe they couldn't read it as an experience.
You mean it was the norm for them?
Yes.
And if by Allah's will you have come to the point where you realize that this is not the way to go, here you only have to thank, it turns out, Allah for revealing this to you, yes, and not blame them.
In this, if I can see the good, it is good from Him. What I see is good. If I couldn't see the good, I start blaming it's coming from me. Everything bad comes from me. All good things are good from Him. All bad, evil things are from me.
And here's the moment of separation from parents. How does one grow up?
Separation is not sitting on their neck and that's it. Get off it. Start serving. It's not about expecting, but to give, to help.
Parents?
Yes. You mean separating. In nutrition, they've fed me, they've trained me. Now I must serve them.
Serve them how?
The best. How they raised me, how they helped me. When I was a kid, in the best way possible, so did I.
So it's a concern then?
Yeah, I don't have to run from them. Separation is not running away, it's just to grow up and change your lifestyle.
How does one grow up?
Asking questions, pondering, who am I? To my parents, who I am. A baby? I'm an eternal child to them. I can be a parent to them. That role never changes. I must always fulfill it, that role. Don't change it, not become a teacher, not teach them how to live, as they say. As they say, not even to say to them.
And that's going to help a person grow up?
Yeah, if I start asking questions.
Who am I to them?
Who am I? And my first role is that of a child. And if I play it well, it will reverberate throughout my life. I can fulfill other roles in the same way. All other roles will be a reflection of that role, the child.
I'm having a hard time figuring that out.
If I am a good child, I will be a good adult. I'll be a good parent.
If you are in your place there, you'll be in your place everywhere.
Yeah, that's the foundation, the baby.
And if you're out there not in your place, then?
The child is the foundation. If I didn't understand my role there, I didn't accept it, then I can't play an adult. I can't play parent either.
Interesting. Uh-huh. For what purpose has Allah put on us guilt, sorrow, longing, anxiety?
We have over 1,000 feelings. More. That's all. That we name. About 200 maybe. Even the senses. Those are the ones we have cognized. There's a lot of them that we haven't recognized. And these are all instruments for worship. The ultimate goal of worship. I will worship when I know. Know Him, cognition, when there will be reflection. Reflection is when there will be questions. And so over every feeling, when I reflect on what I need this feeling for, I begin to cognize. And I come to an instruction on how to use it, this feeling, how to use it.
But anxiety, for example, what might a person be for?
Anxiety, asking questions. What do I need it for? What do I need to be anxious about? About what? If I'm worried about me, for myself I suffer. If I'm anxious about someone, for someone, without privatizing, and for his sake, there will be worship.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. There is something to think about. Thank you. Thank you. And let's, I guess, just a couple last questions. What is your favorite ayat from the Quran?
When I'm sharing, I'm making an assessment, I'm suffering.
Uh-huh.
I don't highlight. Allocating means I'm calculating. I'm tortured by calculations. Allocating.
Uh-huh.
I privatize. My favorite ayat.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I can't divide.
Okay, so here's a question. If you had the opportunity to address all the Muslims in the world right now, what would you say?
To ask, to question who I am more often.
And not to the Muslims of the world?
Same thing.
If you had the opportunity now to address Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, what would you say?
Don't leave us. If I meet him, don't leave us. Well, don't leave us.
If you meet for me too, yes, say yes. And then the final question of our meeting today. If you had the opportunity to address Allah Almighty right now,
I always have the opportunity. He's closer to us than the jugular vein. Always a possibility, without intermediaries, to turn to Him. And He teaches how to turn to Him. It's Surah Fatiha. He gives us a formula to address Him. Praise and invocation.
yes. What dua would you make if you knew it would be 100% accepted?
I don't make dua because it will be accepted, but because He said to do it. And no matter what dua I make, it will be an action. Dua is an action. That's what I'm asking for. There will be worship. That's what I'm made for. If I'm doing for the result, for it to be accepted, I'm doing for me. Not for Him. I'm working for results when I'm suffering. When I make dua simply because He said, ask, I will give. He said, ask simply. I ask because He said, ask. Then I don't suffer. Not that it should be accepted.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Cool, yeah. May Allah teach us all to really learn to really embrace it like that. I actually really enjoyed our discussion today, and I'm really hoping that will be able to digest it all in my head.
Digesting is also a result. I will suffer until I digest. Digesting is a process.
Digest, yes. Thank you so much for being here today.
May Allah be pleased
I've
with
actually
you too.
already said several times. I'll say it again. I've enjoyed our conversation. I'm glad
Me
we're here
too.
today. We were able to talk, to meet. I hope that we'll be able. We'll see you guys again on our podcast. Thank you so much. It's been really interesting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.